How many people touched the last piece of content that you worked on before it went live? I want you to be honest here. I was once working on a marketing team where every piece of content had to go through another content marketer for edits, the head of content, that's pretty normal, the director of marketing, the CEO, and sometimes the CFO. Everyone had opinions. That's what happens when you give everyone a Google Doc. Everyone was leaving comments all over the place. All three people on the content and marketing team were making direct edits within the doc based on these comments. So not only was every piece of content a rambling mess of repeated points and self-serving product insertions, but because this process took so long, we actually went 3 months without publishing anything. If this situation is starting to feel a little too familiar, here are some ways to fix it. First of all, be clear on who is actually involved in a piece and why. Not everyone who wants to have a say should get one. You need to be super clear about why each individual has access to that Google Doc and what value they are bringing into that process. Another way to kind of pull this together is to pull it into a project management tool, probably one that you're already using for your content calendar, and put in actual named steps. Draft, edit, final approval. Assign those to a person so nobody's guessing what the next step is or who still needs to look at something. And finally, this is my favorite point, honestly, pick just one person to be a buffer between the writer and leadership. This was something that I had at a time that was a little bit tricky with a marketing team that I was working on, and having that buffer was super useful for me as a writer because I didn't have to deal directly with C-suite. They were giving feedback, and in this case, the head of content, he was acting as a buffer between C-suite and the writers. That way, your writers don't wake up with 15 comments from people they've never met in a Google Doc. Obviously, this stuff is not easy to put into practice, especially if your executive team is pretty insistent on being involved. I've been there, I know how that works. But it is important for them to see that you're confident in the work that you're doing and your ability to produce content without all of this nitpicking. If someone from the executive team needs to be involved, let them, but make sure that there are boundaries and that there's a very clear time frame as well. Content by committee. It's a problem of having too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's the best way to ruin perfectly good content.